Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Carrow Road. The curtain has fallen on Norwich City's pre-season campaign. It's ended in defeat to St. Pauli here this afternoon, a 3-1 defeat for Johannes Torup's side before, obviously, their championship opener against Oxford United next week at the Kassam Stadium. I cannot believe it has come around that quickly. It feels like 5 minutes ago that we were at Northampton Town, but there we go. That's pre-season, and that's how quickly it moves for you. This was a very interesting afternoon. Obviously, we'll get on to the stuff about Gabriel Sara a little bit later on, but I'm going to go through the game first and foremost. I think the final pre-season game people look at and look for clues and any obvious indications about where Norwich City are and where the starting lineup is. I actually think maybe Johannes Torup would have got more. Sorry, there's a lawnmower. Of course, there is. The groundsman do a brilliant job here, so no criticism from me. But Johannes Torup, I think, would have got more answers about where they're at as a team and probably about the direction of travel, maybe that they don't want to go next week, rather than perhaps than he would have done sort of pro answers, so to speak. Norwich lined up with Gunn in goal. They had a back four of Stacey, Hanley, Sorensen, and who played left back, Crescene, McLean and Nunez, and I nearly said Sarah then through force of habit. Sorry. Liam Gibbs, Rowe, Sainz and Sargent. That was the way they lined up. So if you want to take any clues out of that for next week, then do so. And actually, I think you can break this game up into chunks, really. I thought the first 20 minutes of this game, Norwich City were really good. And I think that's going to get lost a little bit in the analysis. But that period was the best I've seen them in all of pre-season, and I've watched every minute for my sins. That's the best I've seen them in terms of the way that they pressed, the way that they went after the counter press at points, the energy and intensity of what they did off the ball, and it created opportunities for them. And there was some really good running and movement, and that invited them to create opportunities in behind. But that press created opportunities by himself. They won the ball high up the pitch. They caused St. Pauli a lot of issues. They made them loose in possession. It was good. It was intense. They had opportunities. Rowe, I think it was a really lovely raking ball over the top from Kenny McLean that John Rowe took down, had a shot, and it was well saved. They had another couple of opportunities as well. They got Sargent in behind. There was a good pass from Liam Gibbs, I remember, towards the back post. So that first 20 minutes, I think, shouldn't be lost in this analysis, because that 20 minutes, if that is the template, is positive, is good. And then really, I think the game fell into a similar pattern to what we saw against Magdeburg. And I think this probably will be a concern for Johannes Torup, because Norwich had that really positive opening 20 minutes. There was a set piece, and the structure that they've been using at set pieces at the moment, they've got obviously Angus Gunn in goal. They've then got a line of kind of zonal marking that's spread out across the 6-yard box. Then there's a big pocket of space before a clump of players that are man-to-man and are almost acting like blockers and trying to obviously prevent those players who are better in the air from getting clear jumps on goal. But you leave a lot of space to attack and to defend. And it's a lot harder, I think, personally, having to defend backwards than it is to proactively defend and go and attack the ball. And that structure didn't really work for them at Hoffenheim, and it's not really worked today. And it was interesting, Paddy asked the question of Johannes Torup about whether they need to look at that after both of those friendly games, and his answer was a conclusive yes. But Jackson Irvine, who's very good in the air, I know him from his time at Hull. I think he was being marked by somebody, I can't remember who for the life of me at the moment, but they got blocked, and that allowed Irvine essentially a free run to just go and glance the ball into the back of the net. A really good header, to be fair, and took it really well. But the issue was more the structure of how Norwich set up, and the fact that they didn't really read the situation with St. Pauli blocking some of their defensive options to free up their aerial options. So essentially, you've got a little bit of a tussle then between teams trying to block players from getting their best headers into positions where they can go and attack the ball, against an attacking team that's trying to block defenders to open up space to allow their best headers to open the ball. And that structure for me just doesn't quite feel right at the moment. I do think it was better in the second half when they had Shane Duffy on, and he won't mind me saying, he's a head on a stick. He'll go and attack anything and head anything. And as an aerial threat in both boxes, he's significantly better, and that helped. But again, structurally, there were a couple of moments that were less than ideal from set pieces. That's something obviously that Nick Stanley, they've got a team of analysts behind the scene as well who work on set pieces, will need to look at. And then the other two goals really from individual errors. I've got to try and get this the right way round. But the first one, the second one, I think, if my memory is correct. But I've come back from Austria 48 hours ago, and I'm a bit delirious. But Stacey gives the ball away. He had an option to play a bounce pass and to progress up the pitch. Didn't take that, turned back into traffic, got caught, made a poor decision, and that then allowed some Pauli attacker to go through and put the ball into the back of the net. The third goal came from Kribene getting caught in possession, played a ball centrally, and 2 passes later, it's in the back of the net. They were soft and really poor goals to concede. But and Torup has just spoken about there. If there's a positive, this is going to stay with me. But if there's a positive from conceding goals like that, is that is fixable. Those individual errors are fixable, and that comes with coaching. It comes with structure. And Norwich haven't conceded those goals. You look at set pieces and 2 individual errors. They haven't conceded those goals because of the way they're trying to play. In a sense, maybe yes, because players are trying to make decisions that are poor in the context. But it's not Norwich City's structure that's creating opportunities. It's players taking poor decisions in the moments where they need to have a little bit more clarity and confidence. And I felt that first goal really sapped the life out of Norwich. And from sort of the first goal to half time, it was really poor. And I've been quite open in pre-season. I don't put much store really on anything in pre-season. I think you can take trends more than anything else. But I got the sense, and you spoke to people inside the place, there was a concern about the way that they're playing, and that's natural. When you find yourselves 3-0 down in your final pre-season game, I think there is an element of that. But again, I think you have to recognise the second half of the first half. You have to recognise the first half of the first half, which was good and positive and showed a lot of positive signs about what Norwich are trying to do and where they are trying to go. And if they can replicate that at Oxford and beyond, then they will have opportunities to go on and do some really good stuff and be quite fun to watch. But to accept the first 20 minutes, you have to accept that there are going to be portions like the latter 30 in that first half where, because it's high risk, because it's high reward, there are going to be errors and players are going to make poor decisions. And equally, a lot of this team, as it stands at the moment, are players who were playing in a David Wagner system, which is different and is geared different and structured differently, coupled with the fact that Norwich have tried to do different things tactically. Today, I've spoken about it a lot in pre-season, how almost they've been playing with an inverted fullback on one side to create a back three. They didn't do that today. They had both sides quite open because they wanted to use Kribene's pace to get in behind. And for the first 20, that left side looked really good, really powerful. And Kribene was making some really nice runs beyond Borja Sainz, both underlapping and overlapping. For the second 20, the second half of the first half, they struggled a lot more. So again, it's about providing answers, I think, at this stage. But that is the point I wanted to make, really. Those mistakes, I think, are fixable. They are probably a byproduct just of where Norwich City are, and they're going to happen in the season as well. They're going to bleed into the season. Norwich are going to concede soft goals. They're going to make individual errors that lead to moments which probably going to leave fans very frustrated and pulling their hair out. But equally, they can replicate that first half of the first half, and they'll be okay, and they'll create some good moments for them all. But it is a reflection, I'm afraid, of where Norwich are. But they were 3-0 down at half time. 3 really poor goals that they conceded. Second half, I thought, again, the first half of the second half was better in terms of structure, in terms of the opportunities that they created. They really opened up the right side. It was a brilliant ball from Sørensen into Rowe's path to go and finish from close range. I think the centre-back debate at the moment is really interesting because no Jose Cordoba today. He's still suffering a little bit with a thigh issue that he had in Austria. That's due to be scanned today, and obviously we'll wait to see what the outcome was. But part of dipping him out of today's team was to get him hopefully into next week's team against Oxford, and that will mean hopefully that Norwich have a little bit more of a natural left-footed option, but equally someone who Norwich have acquired to sign to play in the way that Torup wants to play. So Sørensen and Hanley is an interesting partnership. I actually felt Norwich looked a better team when Shane Duffy came onto the pitch. Brad Hills, as I've said on here, has had a very good pre-season, but judging from what Torup has said today, it feels like he is close, but probably not close enough to be considered a starting option at this moment in time. So it's interesting, and I can kind of see the logic behind Sørensen being a centre-back because of the quality that he has on the ball, and he documented that really for Norwich's goal when he angled a brilliant ball into John Rowe's path that he went on to finish. But equally, there are clear defensive deficiencies there from him, and he's a midfielder, right? So that's natural. But it's a trade-off between those two options, and that is what I think they're going to have to juggle if they want to play Sørensen there. And I don't think there's any indication that they did. I feel, and I said this in the podcast, that Shane Duffy, when he has played, we all know there's limitations on the ball, as there is for Grant Hanley, as there is for plenty of other Norwich City's players in this system. But what Shane Duffy does is moves the ball quick, not with any degree of difficulty a lot of the time, although there's some pretty good raking passes today, but he moves the ball simply and just gets it, gives it. And that's what you need really from a player who isn't a ball playing centre half, probably by his own admission. You just need him to get the ball and give it to someone better than him so Norwich can play. And so I think that right-sided defence is probably as interesting as the left-sided defence at the moment. But yeah, second half Norwich were better structured. They were more competitive. There was less of the individual errors. I think it's going to be interesting to see what he does at right back and whether Jack Stacey's performances, I would say, over pre-season as a whole, has opened the door or left the door ajar slightly for Callum Fisher, who obviously went off with slight injuries today, but that doesn't sound like it's going to be too serious. And yeah, I think it was mixed. I can understand why a lot of people will leave today feeling concerned. But again, you have to take the concern with some of the positive aspects that were there as well, because they were there and we saw them in elements of both half. But and this is where probably the acceptance has to come, that this is a Norwich team that is manoeuvring to somebody or to somewhere in new, and they're trying to do that with a core of the players who were part of what came before. That's difficult, and we saw how long it took when they tried to do a similar thing in 2017, different way that they wanted to play. But we look at that first year under Daniel Farke, there were some really ugly moments. And it would not surprise me if there were ugly moments again, particularly in the opening portion of this campaign from where we stand at this moment in time. So yeah, the game rumbled on. It descended a little bit into subs. We had Jaden Warner at right back, we had Christian Fashionat at right back at one stage. So all of those elements took place, and yeah, Norwich now obviously are done in terms of their pre-season campaign. I think. It's interesting. We've seen different structures, different experiments, different players, and that's natural. We've got a new head coach there that wants to assess the options that he has. But in terms of answers, I think he will land on a place that is probably quite different to what we saw tonight, which is a little bit different to maybe what we saw from last year's final pre-season, where I think the 11 that played against Olympiacos that day was the 11 that played against Hull. I could see quite a few changes, which probably leads us onto the next point, which is obviously that Gabriel Sara wasn't involved today. He is set to complete a move to Galatasaray. That is all but done, barring medicals and that kind of thing. But player-wise, it's going to get done. Clubs are agreed. Some Galatasaray officials have flown over. I think there's been some indication that he might be flying over there and whatnot. But he wasn't here at Carrow Road today. That's for a fee of north of 20 million. Torup basically said it made no sense to play him, and why would you take that risk? Wonderful player. I've said it on here enough, really, that it would be an absolute travesty if he was playing Championship football last season because of how talented he is, and that stands to reason. I think with the level of clubs that he's had interest from, not just Galatasaray. There's been Premier League interest, there's been Serie A interest, and yeah, he's going to be very difficult for Norwich to replace. But they're going to have to do that and try and be creative with the way that they do that. I don't think they will just look for one midfielder. I could see them looking for a few versatile options as well. They obviously need another left back, and hopefully Callum Doyle will move to a resolution pretty quickly towards the start of next week. And Paddy very directly asked Johannes Hofterup if he felt they'd have enough left-sided defensive option in the building before Oxford, and he said they would. So we'll take him at his word. It does sound, the noises do sound like that he's moving in the right direction as well. So yeah, a really interesting afternoon for all of those reasons. Plenty of stuff I think to discuss and to worry about and to concern about. And thankfully, for once, it's not just me rambling on. I've got a Norwich fan to bring in. So I'm going to move to one side and bring Anna in, who has been watching. I think you're with the Norwich media team. Is that right, Anna, today?
Yeah, we're just hanging out in the press room, observing, seeing how it all works in terms of pre-match, post-match, during the match. So just very much shadowing and observing today. It's very interesting.
Excellent. What did you make of today then? That's probably a nice place to start.
I think the way today can be summed up is the case of old habits die hard, because they looked great in the first 20, as you've already mentioned. You could see what they were trying to do. There was fast passing, every pass was forward, every pass was proactive. Probably still at the point where they're trying to do a little too much when they get chances, but it all looked really good. And then we continued to a dodgy set piece, which obviously that'll be something for the set piece coach to look at. We know he's new, we'll probably be doing things slightly different to Andy Hughes. I'm sure that will come, but as soon as that went in, it was like the confidence went off the cliff edge, and you just saw the old habits creeping in again, the kind of slow passing, the slow build up, passing amongst themselves at the back, which I've never been one to say get rid of it or hoof it up, whatever people say, but you always risk, you're always putting pressure on yourself, and you're always risking it when you're passing around the back too much, because then you risk losing possession, and if you lose possession, chances are you might concede, which again we did today. I just felt like we were seeing a little bit of even the last few seasons creep in, but I think there's no naivety here. I know this is going to be a new way of playing. It's going to take time. That way of playing has been coaxed into them for what, 2.5, 3 seasons now. So it's, as much as I would love it to be a quick fix, it's not going to be. They can't drop that straight away. It's going to take a while to coach out them. But for me, the most important thing was that I could see what they were trying to do. And those glimpses looked good to me, and those glimpses, the things that could be built upon. As you mentioned, Parker's first season wasn't great, but they stuck with it, and then we all know what happened in the second season. So new systems and change and all that thing, they can take time, and I'm willing to give it a bit of time, and I hope other fans are too, because it felt like the club is going with a bit of a clean slate now, drawing the line under the last few seasons, trying to be a bit more honest, trying to be a bit more open, trying to get the fans on side. And I think if they're working with a clean slate, I think it's time for the fans to kind of draw a line on the things as well.
Excellent, and that probably sums us up quite nicely as we head to Oxford next week for the season opener at the Kassam. It's going to be absolutely fascinating, and of course, if you can win that game, everyone forgets everything about pre-season anyway. Such is the nature of it. And of course, I'm sure I know I've spoken to Chris Sutton about this before. Obviously, before that famous Premier League season, I think Norwich lost every single pre-season game. They were 2-0 down at half-time against Arsenal, and they went on to finish third in the Premier League. So, hey, what does pre-season prove anyway? We're about to find out. Thank you very much for watching. Pinkin.com is the place to go for all of the analysis and reaction to this game and the entirety of pre-season. And we will, of course, be at the Kassam next week. From me, from Anna, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you again very soon.